Hello and welcome to the Loop with Sloop. I'm your host, Sloop, and today is the fourth episode of the Learning the Web series. In this episode, we'll be getting our feet wet with CSS. This will be an introduction to CSS, kind of a 101 crash course, if you will. Now let's take a look at the lesson plan. So today we're going to be answering three main questions. First, we'll say what CSS does. Second, we'll answer exactly how do we put it into our HTML document. And then thirdly, we'll take a look at how we can use CSS to manipulate our content in cool ways. So first off, what does CSS do? I've kind of alluded to this if you've seen my previous videos, that CSS is what we mostly use to alter the visual tweaks of things. If you want to change the color of text, you use CSS. You could do it with HTML. It is possible, but CSS is so much more efficient at doing these tasks. We're not even going to worry about how to do it in HTML. In terms of if you want to put, change the size of an image, if you want to change the size of a div, if you want to put something on the left or right, if you want to center it, all of these things are done in CSS. And there's a very efficient way of doing that in CSS. And that's why we use it. And really, CSS can't display anything. That's what we use HTML for. HTML is meant as kind of like a skeleton. It holds the website together. And CSS does all of the visual tweaks. It puts the flesh on, so to speak, if we want to extend that metaphor a bit too far. But so now that we've kind of established what it is, we'll learn a bit more by figuring out exactly where we put it. Now, there are three ways in which we can put CSS code. First, we can use an inline method. We could indeed put it in line, inside of our actual document, inside of the body. This would be placed inside of each individual element. In this, we would put, you put style, and then you would go in here, and I'm not going to really actually do it because it's not really all that effective. I'm going to be focusing on more of the internal elements. Instead of having it individually affecting one single text at a time, I'm going to affect the entire document at a time and selecting each individual element using an internal thing here. I'm just going to focus on that. There is a third way as well. You could use an external way of doing it in which you put it in a completely separate document. But for now, for simplicity's sake, since it's an introduction, I'm going to just focus upon putting it in the head area here, internal here, in which I use style. And I kind of talked about this a bit in my last one. Oops. And you'll notice here we do end the style and we begin the style. If we talk about the style, this is where we begin our document here. You can see text CSS. This tells the computer that it's a CSS document style, or excuse me, CSS code that we're implementing here. And do remember and do note that it is inside of the head area if we do this method. So let's say that I want to affect all divs. This is something that, and this is the third section, by the way, in which we show, how we actually manipulate the content. There are three main ways that I'm going to focus on here. First, we can manipulate every single element of this one type. What I mean by that is, let's say I want to change all of the P's, all of the P tags. So that way, I want to make all of the color of the text here. I'm going to go in here. And we'll go over all of the individual code that you're going to use. But right now what we're just going to do is we're just going to turn the color, we'll just turn it, we'll just turn it a different color. All right, we'll turn it really light. Actually, no. We will turn it much more red. Yes. All right, so we're going to do this. And this will change the color of P, of all of this text, all of the text that is inside of the P tag here, to a different color. And I'll show you what that looks like when we actually go out into our main document here. I'm going to take it here, and we've saved this as an intro to CSS. So I'm going to open this in Firefox. Boom, you can see everything in here is now red, all of the P tags. Now let's say I want to change this into an H1 instead of having it be P. Well, if we save this, we go over here, we refresh that, you can see this is black now, but this P stuff still remains red. That's because it will always affect all of the P tags inside of here. Let's say if I want to influence the div, div, and I want to still make all of the text inside of that, all inside of the divs, and I save it here. I've altered this so it only will affect the div tags. Now you'll notice all of our text is inside of divs. So when I save it and I go over here, refresh it, the heading actually does turn red. Now if now that's very, very useful if we want to affect large batches of text. But let's say I want to affect one single type of text. Let's say I want to affect a class that is the content class here. Now this content class is 3 actual divs here. There are 3 divs which have this inner content in here. Well, the way we manipulate classes in that case is we put a dot before our name here. And so we do dot content. Now dot content will affect all of the classes inside of there. So we can save this, go over here, and refresh this, and you can see that the outer content, this was the outer div, not the inner div, is black. But all of the stuff that was in that inner div in each individual class is now being affected, and it's now all turned red. Now this can be done with any different color, or really anything, and you can use that to affect anything that's in the class section. But let's say that I want to affect one individual div. This is what we use the ID for. So if I'm going to use reference something that has been named with an ID, I'm going to use this number symbol right here. Now this will affect everything, because you'll notice this outer div affects all the things. The div includes here this entire section. So I'm going to save this, and you'll notice in our last one it affected only the inner content. I'm going to refresh it here. Now it's affecting the outer content. Whoops, what am I doing wrong here? Oh, that's because it's not named content, it's named outer div. So that is my mistake. Yes, you want to make sure that you have the right name actually up there, otherwise it won't affect anything. All right, so we're going to save that, and we're going to bump over here, and you can see now it affected the entire div, that one single div. If I change the size and I want to put stuff out here, I save that, and you'll notice that that stuff is not inside that div, therefore it has not been affected by the CSS. So that's how we reference each individual thing using CSS. We're going to go over each individual way that we can do that. We'll talk about colors, we'll talk about how to change the sizes of divs and various other things in the next couple of episodes. But I think I'm going to end that here just so that you kind of have an understanding of how you would call individual elements inside of a CSS. We know exactly what CSS is, and you get kind of your feet wet here. So hopefully I'll see you guys in the next episode, and hopefully I've been helpful.